Hello and welcome. This is OBN Horn of Africa, Future Africa program. Today I'm joining by Mr. Christophe Ndai from Burundi. Mr. Christophe Ndai is an author of a book entitled as Africa Raising Economic Power. And it is my pleasure to meet you today.
Yeah, good morning to all the viewers. I'm very happy to speak on your TV or channel, and you said thank you to the Ethiopian people who make us proud in Africa. So thank you.
Introduce yourself to my audience briefly. Who is Mr. Christophe, and a little bit about your background as well.
Yeah, my name is Christophe Ndai. I'm from Burundi. But I lived and studied in South Africa for the past 22 years, and I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm the author of the book, Africa, the Rising Economic Power, and also is a book which is a kind of a message, which is calling for Africa's financial independence. It is time for Africa's financial independence, like it was a time for Africa's political independence in 1960s. We believe that now is time to liberate us from IMF, World Bank, and Exim Bank and ISPEN Bank, to have a common World Bank of our own and to build our own common continental. And we really see peace and development, which is gradually coming into, we appreciate what is happening. And that's we have a movement in South Africa and worldwide, people from UK, people from United States, from Sweden, from Nigeria, from South Africa, from Kenya, who are joining us, and to be able to convince all the 54 African countries, African presidents, to urgently meet at the African Union and create continental taxes to every single good and services. We have to remember that Nigeria, between 1970 to 1994, Nigeria created what was called Mandela Tax, which was to help Southern African to be free from apartheid. They created Mandela Tax, charging 2% to every government employee. They managed to collect $61 billion within 2 decades. To an economy in 1990s in Nigeria, an economy was almost $50 billion in terms of GDP. And they are now almost 10 times, which is $500 billion in terms of GDP. So if Nigeria on that time managed to collect $61 billion, we are capable, all of us African countries, to liberate us from this weakness of financial weakness, which bring in neo-colonialism to be possible, to have a window to enter into our continent. And this is very urgent. We are able to do that. The second reason why it's possible that we can do that, first you must understand Nigeria managed to do that. There's no excuse that we cannot do it, all of us. It's urgent to do it. The second reason is that Africa tax 3 times less to every single good or whatever, in income tax and VAT or whatever. We tax 3 times less than Europe. And this is not because we are poor. Europe always tax more for it to gain its objective. So Africa is not taxing its people, especially in the informal sector, and we have to make sure that as European taxpayers suffer to conquer Africa, it's time that African taxpayers suffers to build and protect Africa. And this is very important. This is a fight that we must fight, all of us as 54 countries, to make sure that we don't make in danger our leaders. The leaders must decide all at once. We don't want to see scenarios of one president fighting for this objective. They must decide, all of them, and create continental taxes to all African countries. And the point that will be asked is with corruption, this is possible. Yes, it is possible indeed, because we can use the private sector to collect this continental taxes, the way Australia does. You can use the private sector in exchange of 10% of collection to avoid corruption. This is possible. We have to make sure that we go deep down and look at technologies and all what is important, and to go down and collect our taxes. So this institution, this 55 African president, we have to sit around the African Union institution and decide to create a Pan-African Infrastructure Fund, which we go there as a tax union and be able to establish itself to each African countries and be able to first help each African countries to expand their tax bases and create other new taxpayers, and from there to establish continental taxes. Every single good can add anything and be able to collect $30 to $50 billion every year, which is $500 billion every 7 to 10 years. Then we are capable then from the second step, we've been able to create this, to build these two infrastructure, which under Agenda 2063, there are 10 important projects under Agenda 2063. The first one that must be an emergency is, which is so important to be able to build, which we connect all capital cities with all the capital cities with fast railway. And this, why we have to build this one, is because there are 3 reasons that is the most important one. The first one is that 30% of African countries are landlocked. And this 30% of those, all our countries in Africa, they are the poorest country in the world, but they are among the richest countries in terms of minerals. And some of the minerals cannot be transported in terms of roads, because they will break those roads. They need this kind of infrastructure and to be able to reach to the coast. So it's very, very important to have integrated high-speed railways to be built by ourselves. So the approach that is done by this NEPAD or PIDA in the African Union to ask all Africans countries to ask for loans and build, this is not good, because it delays this project. We have to have our finances and complete it in fully this infrastructure. So this is very, very, very important to build. The second point, the fact that we have to build this integrated high-speed railway, is that we cannot succeed the trade agreement that we did sign in Africa without this integrated high-speed railway. Why? It's because Africa is too big. Africa is 30 million kilometers square. So 30 million kilometers square is equal to the surface area of China. You add it to the surface area of India. You add it to the surface area of United States of America. You add it to the surface area of the whole European Union. You also add it to the Argentina surface area, which all those countries are almost 29 something kilometers square, 30 million kilometers square as well. So you can understand, and these countries have got 3.6 billion people, but as we are 1.6 billion people. On this book, yes, one of the other points that we didn't speak is about industrialization. What we're fighting for is that African continent can be able to industrialize within really decade or 2 decades by all African government to act as a private sector in some extent. Imagine if each African government go and identify all products and services that are importing. They write them down and they go and ask loan to any institution the way they ask loans for roads and all other infrastructures. Then they go into the Asia. There are a lot of machineries. They buy and create industrial areas and produce those goods, not only those goods in the strategic sector, whatever good, it can be any good, cell phones, whatever, shoes, whatever, anything. And then they now produce those goods in masses, and the local market will sustain those in the first 1 to 2 years to 3 years. And then once those industries reach on the growth phase, which usually take almost 2 to 3 years, then they sell urgently those products, those companies into the private sector. The private sector like to buy industries that are already operating. All African countries does on see that system. They just open industries and they sell them. As we go with corruption and so on, they create them, they initiate them, they create them, they market them, and once they grow in terms of production and market and production, they enjoy also the market, continental market. They sell them urgently. Then we see being able to give enough job to our children, to our people as we go, and we are capable of doing that. Most of African government are capable of doing that. Of course, we can explain there are this IMF and World Bank that tell us that the government cannot intervene and here and there, but we know that African government, well, most of African government companies are the ones that made our fathers to survive. They gave them jobs, it's true. And then they have to sell all these companies. When they open them, then they produce their production growth phase, and then they sell them. And they don't keep them. We're seeing be able to give jobs, enough jobs to our youth. That's the point that also we are fighting to promote around the African Union, to that we can be able to give jobs to our people as soon as possible. Otherwise, we're in trouble. We are really, really in trouble when you look at how the demographic trend is in Africa. Because why are we going to reach 3 billion people? We know that people who are born already, we know it because we've got fertility rate which is high in Africa, is 4 point something. So that people are already born are the one we make those children. It is absolutely inevitable to have that demographic trend. It will happen, and when it's happening, it then will expect problems in employment. It will be a chaos in Africa. Even if we can have integrated trade agreement, we must make sure industrialize. We get good to exchange. By the way, we cannot just have a trade agreement without goods to be exchanged. That's very, very important. So this is key to do, and then it will really help Africa to really grow. And then it will also decrease population. We won't see, if you industrialize between 30 years Africa, it will go gradually decreasing in terms of demographic trend, because look South Korea, look Japan. The more women get jobs on the process when we industrialize countries, the more they get less and less children. This is the only solution that we can see Africa, a really demographic trend, go into logic way, and then respond at how we respond with economic issues that we found ourselves.
If you have also add that realizing the integration of the African continent, some are raising also the common currency of the continent. The continent should have its own common currency, and also the African Continental Free Trade Area should also be implemented. And if you also connect or relate this issue to what you are raising now.
Yes, but we have to go into phase, because look, when we have to go to the monetary system, we better have first our financial freedom, our financial independence. There are so many factors that plays and influence that plays that we might not even succeed on monetary system, common monetary system. We have to make sure that we have our own financial system. First, we connect all our capital cities. We have got 54 markets which are far each other. The Continental Trade Agreement, we never really succeed on its maximum when we don't have the continental, the integrated high-speed railway. Why? Look at Congo DRC. The huge Congo DRC has got provinces that are not exchanging goods. So imagine when we have Africa, which is not having that integrated high-speed railway. You don't see it, but Africa is huge. To reach one place to another place is too long and too costly. But if you can move from Ethiopia to South Africa within 24 hours, or instead of within a week, if you can move your good from every corner to another corner between 2 hours to 3 hours, it is on that phase that you are capable of saying, okay, we have got this integrated high-speed railway, which will allow us to exchange goods instead of exchanging poverty. We have to make sure that we have this to exchange goods And then it will help now to go to the next phase to be able to create a monetary system. But, and as I say, integrated high-speed railway, it lack finances. We cannot keep expecting the European Union to finance this and that, or the private sector. We have to create our continental taxes and be able to build integrated high-speed railway. The second one to build is Grand Inga Dam. The Grand Inga Dam is capable of giving each African country 7 megawatt to 1,000 megawatt of electricity, installed electricity to each country. You must know that 40% of African countries have got less than 500 megawatt each. So if we have this Inga Dam built urgently, we are capable of industrializing all our capital cities. It is on that phase that we'll be able to see and to build our monetary system, which will be then, monetary system will be only successful when we are capable of being able to exchange goods as much as we can. As I say, Africa is too big, and we have few. Remember, I was comparing these 5 other countries, which has got 3.6 billion people. We are 1.3 billion people to the same surface area. So Africa is empty. Imagine to move to all this land, big land. So you have to have such a infrastructure which you can make us reach to every corner of Africa with our own goods and services. And we have to electrify our capital cities and go to the next phase of one common monetary system. We can back it up with gold, with all countries in Africa who have got gold. They can have shares and bring that gold. Then we strengthen our own monetary system and print as much money as we want and give it to the people, to the African people. Then they can strive for their creativities. And then we find ourselves our GDP growing. After 10 years, we'll be able to reach really India in terms of GDP. And in the next 20 years, we are capable really being able to have, to be in forefront in terms of GDP for the next 100 years. So this is very important. We have to know what we have to do. We have first to create our own money. We don't have to beg. We have to create our own money. We are capable of having our own finances. Then everything we follow suit. That's what I mean on that. All those things are right. We know this trade agreement is okay, is there, it's fine. They will do it. But we know that we need all those projects have been Grand Inga Dam, they study all that. But Grand Inga Dam is supposed to be built. But you know what happened in 2014? They wanted to build it. In World Bank, but they refuse to be with. That's where our weakness is. We cannot go and beg such big infrastructure to the Western institution anymore. We have to create our own finances. They refuse to build it because of one NGO, which is called International River, which went there to the World Bank and told to the World Bank, went to the Congress of America to go and vote at the World Bank against a Grand Inga financing. Imagine. And then the Americans say, no, stop to finance a Grand Inga Dam. We're going to finance only small projects in Africa to delay us from to come out of darkness. You understand? So this, why? Is because we keep begging. So this is very important. The first step to do is to be free financially. That's where we stand. And then we are coming to the African Union for General Assembly next year.
What are the challenges that hinder the continent not to be integrated in these all aspects?
The first point is financial weakness. That's the first one. I did explain it much more, and I explained also the infrastructures. We are a big continent. We have to connect ourselves, and then the integration will be possible. But the third one now, it is we focus sub-regionally. We have to break all the sub-region organization, what we call, Africa has got 39 sub-regional organizations. So we know only SADC, we know only ECOWAS, or East African communities. There are 39 almost. So we found that each country belongs to 10 sub-regions. For example, Kenya belongs to 10, Congo DRC belongs to 9, I think, and so on. And Rwanda, I think, 9, and so on. So we have to make sure that most of these organizations, these countries, of course, they go to seek market, but they also go to seek profit for the Western project. This is a weakness. We have to focus to one continental infrastructure, which is only the Secretariat of African Continental Trade Agreement, which was created in Addis Ababa. So we must urgently dissolve all these organizations, or sub-organizations, sub-regional organizations. Africa is the only one which has got a lot of sub-regional organizations. So it's wasting our time. We have to focus continentally. We have to look at the continental scope and be able to move much more faster. So this is also the third point that we come and ask to the African Union to act. And we don't want to hear ECOWAS as ECOWAS, West and East and so on. We have to look at the continental scope and focus all the project on that way, and we'll be able to succeed very fast. That's the one which is also hindering also the development of Africa. I say first, the infrastructure, the financial independence, which we can resolve by creating a continental taxes. Urgently, I said about the infrastructures, we don't have to focus to all the projects under Agenda 2063. We have to focus to integrated high-speed railway to complete it ourselves, and we are capable to do that within 5 to 10 years, within 7 to 10 years. We have to electrify all our capital cities using that opportunity that we have with this Congo DRC river, Inga River. Then we are capable of moving forward. And we really congratulate also Ethiopia of the Renaissance that you managed to be able to fight really efficiently for ourselves. So we were looking also at Ethiopia to give us such wisdom and to push much further, because Africa has failed with Grand Inga Dam. It has failed. Imagine having 45,000 megawatts. In fact, Congo have got 100 potentiality of 100,000 megawatts, but they failed. It's in fact enough to electrify all our capital cities, but we are sitting and just one NGO did fight against it, and they didn't fight only in the Congress of America. They went also in South Africa to the Congress, and they asked to the Parliament of South Africa not to support the building of the second Inga in Congo, because it on the first Inga 1, Inga 2, Inga 3, then Africa can be able to have electricity. So we have an enemy which is trying to fight against the electrification of Africa, and they say just do solar, do some kind of small here and there, and then each time something happens and big like what you did in Ethiopia, then you get problem. If something happened in Tanzania also with Magufuli, wanted to electrify the whole Tanzania, and he got problems. So we have now to sit all 54 countries. We cannot allow one president to fight alone anymore. They will kill them. They will have problems. We have to make sure that all presidents sit together. They decide once for all. And we are in trouble. We don't have a choice, because our continent is going to reach 3 billion people in 40 years from now. We'll be 4 billion people by 2090 to 20. It's not far from now. It's like now to 1960s, even if some people are still existing in 1960s days. So which means we will see a continent with 4 billion people. People are going to eat each other. We must do something in our generation. We must make sure that we use the African Union to create our own financial institutions and build these two infrastructures. And then we let our people to move as Africans to look their life from left to right. Then we see really our continent be successful. So all the things that they are doing now might not succeed or might delay because of lack of financing.
And how should these both continental and regional organizations such as AU, IGAD, ECOWAS, COMESA, and others work together so as to free the continent from dependency?
So as we stand for all those infrastructure, all those sub-regions, we stand for them to be dissolved and to stand, because you see the Continental Trade Agreement Secretariat in Ghana has got all the aspirations that all these organizations, sub-regional organization want. So we can just make sure that they are centered in the continental scope. So that's the only way they can work together, not as a one here and there and there. That's the first point that I see they can work with. And the second point, then we'll be able to create a continental other infrastructures, structures to be able to respond when it comes to energy, when it comes to infrastructures, other infrastructure, continental infrastructure to move forward.
There are also challenges from the Western global powers. As you know, there are interferences here and there in the African continent. And my question is, how should the continent fight against interferences and even neocolonialism?
Yes, we first of all, by responding that, we say we really congratulate your president, President Abiy. Really, it was a wonderful move. We congratulate him for the protection of Ethiopia. The Prime Minister, sorry.
Yeah, he is Prime Minister.
Yes, the Prime Minister Abiy, we congratulate him. He did well. And then really, we are behind him, all the organizations, all Africa. But we have to notice something. We have to make sure that it's becoming too dangerous for one president to move alone. Because this same scenario happened to here in Burundi in 2015. Once they see in Burundi many discoveries in terms of minerals, then the country became a problem for the Western. So they fought against President Nkurunziza, and all this is really challenging, which means that means our presidents are not free. Our presidents are not free. The people who are the most vulnerable African presidents. The fact that they are most vulnerable because our countries still depend financially from the West. We have to break that one. And the only way they can protect themselves is to act as one, not one president to go behind and fight alone. We saw President Gaddafi, how he did fight for financial independence of Africa, then he paid for it. So if we go together, they go together and they create this financial independence by creating continental infrastructures as one. They vote about it. We are fighting for that, our organization, to make sure that they vote for it. We want to see the people are for, the people are against. It's a freedom, it's democracy. But we have right for this to be into the table of the African Union General Assembly as Africans. Once we establish this, then we look at the implementation, how the technicality, how the tax will be, all that be collected and so on. We have first to agree on the philosophy of the financial independence of Africa, and then we move forward on technicalities. And from there, we start to see our countries become financial free from the West and from Chinese, and by financing ourselves as we go, our own infrastructures. After we've built these two infrastructures that I said, which is integrated high-speed railway and Grand Inga Dam, which will put Africa to be a first economic power for the next 200 ahead in terms of GDP, right? Not in terms of service delivery that we follow as we go, but in terms of GDP, we'll be able to be in front of every continent for 100 to 200 years ahead. We have to work on it, and it's our generation. So we are even calling all Pan-Africanists to stop talking. It's time to act. Don't complain. No complaint. It's not time to complain. We must go first to the African Union, and we ask our right to intervene. And this is not my call. It is not my call. I'm a born-again Christian. This book that I wrote, I try to procrastinate it. I know it's controversial, the religion. I'm sorry, you might not put it on TV, but it's the Lord Jesus Christ who really insisted that I wrote the book in terms of financial independence. And this is on my testimony on the book, and the last page, chapter 12, and the book is on Amazon. So it is not from me. I'm fighting for my salvation. I have to speak it. And the Lord has protected African. Remember, he's not the first time he did it. He used Mr. William Wilberforce in 19th century, he used to the Congress, the William Wilberforce, to fight against slavery. And he said, okay, the Lord called me. The Lord spoke to me in my dream. He never stopped to talk to me to go and fight for African leaders, the African freedom against slavery. And he managed. What is good is that when the Lord is calling this call, it is irreversible. That's why slavery is irreversible. You cannot be enslaved so easily. It's a spiritual call. This is a spiritual call. The Lord is calling you African leaders. Please, whoever here, don't look left and right. The only solution for Africa, it is time to create continental taxes, collect your finances. It is the same as those Western finances. Collect your finances and then create infrastructures. Once we have our own common market, practically with these infrastructures, we'll be able to strive and remove poverty out of our people. And once we have that, we have a GDP. Once we reach on the stage of GDP of India, remember, it will be like China, India, Africa as a whole, then we have a balance in terms, there won't be any hegemony, Western hegemony anymore. It will be a right world to live in. There won't be these forces, Western forces, that are imposing us anything. We have innate and intrinsic value given by God. It is not the UN that give me values. No, it is God that gave us human values. It is Him who give us human values. It is not UN. Because if it's UN, then we are enslaved. We are enslaved. But if it's God, everyone has got human value. White, black, Chinese, Ethiopians, black, whoever is, have got innate and intrinsic value. So which means we have a right to fight for our own economies, our own way of living. This is very key.
Well done, Mr. Ndai. And the continent is Africa. The continent has been suffering from many challenges like climate-induced disasters, and as well as conflicts here and there in the continent. And the question is, how should the continent overcome such challenges?
Yes, those challenges, most of them are worldwide challenges, which this means we have to share. We live in globalization. We have to share solutions. That's the first key to understand. We are not in the island, Africa, where we are in those institutions that we can share how to resolve all those issues. That's the first one. But the second one now, it is when it comes to military, we have got African standby force, which is very weak in my view. We try to get finances for them, but if we have all these continental infrastructures, continental taxes, and we create our own World Bank and IMF, which we can be able to have $500 billion to $1 trillion every decade, we are able to build those infrastructures. We are also able to make available at least $5 to $10 billion every year as a budget to be able to have this standby force be ready to protect Africa from any war, whatever is terrorism, whatever in Mozambique, terrorism, whatever in Somalia, terrorism, whatever, even if avoid, make sure that they prevent coup d'etats and so on. But we must have first to be free financially. That's my important point, that to advance, to resolve most of problems that Africa found itself. And then the second point is that Africa is the biggest, has got the biggest army personnel, which means active soldiers that are in Africa are almost 3 million active soldiers to all 54 countries, which means it is the biggest continent that which has got a huge big one, because the second one is China, which has got 2.4 million soldiers, active soldiers. So we are the first. We have enough soldiers. When it comes to expenditure, military expenditure, we are almost equal to Germany, even if Russia, almost with Russia. So which is now we are capable being able as one to really eradicate any threat, whatever external threat or internal threat. So this is key to know. So we have to create financial independence, fix our infrastructures, and connect our capital cities, and have a standby army force which is strong enough financially to act any corner of Africa. We will see peace being established at everything. Imagine if we had it with Ethiopia problem. So I don't think anyone will go and create a rebellion at any corner, whatever it's in Ethiopia, in Mozambique, and so on. So we have to make sure that any enemy knows what he can pay when it comes to bring this, to destabilize Africa. This is very key. It's terms of money. It is in terms of money. You cannot protect Africa by only ask money from the West. Why now it is some companies from the West that are sometimes creating these troubles. This is a dilemma. That's what we have to resolve. So this is very, very important. So the third one is political. And when we see Africa, we have to make sure that we push our people to look in continental, in Pan-African solution. That's why we look at it we propose at African General Assembly, at African Union next year, to be able to create a constitution, a political constitution, which now, in fact, under Agenda 2063, there will be a political constitution, but where they are seeking how they can do it, because the year 2063, we are planning to be politically united, but we are seeking how we can make it perfect. That's why we found ourselves that in our organization that we want to push that we create a parliament which is in terms of languages. Africa has got 2,200 languages. We want those languages to go out there and elect their parliament, their representative. We must create united Africa Republic, not United States of Africa, because the countries are new, but languages is a strong base to create our political unity. Look, for example, how many languages are in Nigeria? Almost, I think it's 200. I don't know. It might be 200. I don't know. Maybe 600. I don't know. I have to check around there. But they live together under a country called Nigeria, or under a country called, I think Congo is 200 probably. They live around, they don't understand each other, but they live within a country called Congo DRC. By the way, Congo name is the name of one tribe. But if they can live together in one country called Congo, they don't hear each other. Why we cannot stay together to a country called Africa? I think Ethiopia has got 60 languages, if I'm not mistaken. But you see, we have to make sure that we push our continent into understanding that the fact that we can live into one country with many languages, there's a possibility to live all together in one continent with 2,000 languages. If you can live 200 languages, you can live and have freedom everywhere you want with 2,200 languages. So there's a parliament, which is a Pan-African parliament, which is based in South Africa. Then is the one that we have to structure first. In the beginning, we have to make sure that all 2,200 languages are represented. We elect them, they elect the president, and the president will be a president of the African Union. That's the first structure we have to do politically. And then we have to get our finances to the other side. We have to prioritize the infrastructure that we must create. We then have to have a kind of TV, a Pan-African TV, which is now promoting much, much more on Africa than focusing one country. That's why we call all our Pan-Africanists to create a general assembly of Pan-Africanists to fight for one single idea: financial independence, political in unity in terms of languages, and also building the main infrastructures to unite Africa and to make sure the trade agreement is implemented in full. And we see Africa being really prosperous as we don't believe. And this cannot fail. As I speak, it won't fail, because as I said, this call, as I'm born again Christian, I'm not a pastor. This call, I don't sleep since 2019. The Lord keep telling me that speak loudly, speak about the financial independence of Africa. He is calling everyone. This is a beautiful fight. It's a beautiful, don't be scared. We know that we got problem. It's a beautiful death. So if you fight for such idea, it's a beautiful death. We are in trouble. We have got 65% of youth that are seeking for us. We've got 50 years or 45 years, 60 years, the solutions. So we must make sure that we make sure that these ideas are into implementation as soon as possible before we double our population by 2060.
Finally, if you have any message to my audience, especially to the youth, to African youth, to African leaders, and as well to the entire continent, and you are welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting us. And we are calling all Pan-Africanists, everyone who wants to join us. We will have a meeting. We will meet at wherever the African Union General Assembly take place next year. We want you join us, you come. There won't be any money asked. You buy your ticket, you book your hotel. We will inform you, right? At panafricandestiny@gmail.com. If you're interested, join us that we can go and ask all our 54 African presidents to implement those points that we spoke. The first one, creation of a Pan-African taxes, continental taxes to every single good and services in Africa, and also build integrated high-speed railway and Grand Inga Dam and implement the continental trade agreement. And the third one, to create a constitution in terms of languages. The fourth one is to make sure that our military standby committee, standby army is have enough fund, and all those points we ask to our president. Remember, we have right to ask to the Secretariat of the African Union to be understood, and our leaders to act for that. We are the one, many organizations are the ones that fight behind the scene to push leaders to act on the profit of people. Africa is the only one which is lacking activists. Continentally, we keep speaking only and complaining on TV. We have to shift and go and be more active. So we are calling you to register. We will explain you. You can also look at. We have got African Rising Soon TV. You can go and look on our YouTube channel and be able to understand much more further what we are fighting for. And we also call to everyone. It's not about religion. It is true. It's the Lord Jesus who is calling this to be implemented. But we call every religion. This is politics. It's every religion. It's not religious. Here is just I was saying about that to tell you it's very important for my salvation to say about that. But it is very, very important that all of us, we join ourselves together. We've got one God. We join ourselves against this neo-colonialism, because these powers are weak. They are very weak. They change. You just have to act as one. They will just run away from Africa, and then we'll be able to be equal, act equal, and enter into globalization with full equal force. And if we don't do anything as we speak now, we're in trouble. Africa will eat each other. We have this responsibility, and then we really appreciate that you join us, and then we inform you as we go.
Mr. Christophe Ndai from Burundi, thank you very much for your deep analysis. And this is not the end. We will come back to you whenever we want to just talk on different issues, different African issues. And OBN Horn of Africa is your home hereafter. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
This is all about our discussion with Mr. Christophe Ndai from Burundi. Till next edition, goodbye.